Hey everyone, this is Treasures at Home, where home and business come together. Let's get started. Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Treasures at Home. Today's guest is Elyse Sheeler, and Elyse is a speech therapist.
Yeah, I usually the title I'm using right now is speech language pathologist and special
That
needs
sounds
advocate
fancy.
and homeschooling coach. So those are the three areas that I am focused in right now. And a mom, right? That's number one, and a
And
wife as well.
a mom, a wife, a baker, a chauffeur, a nurse, what else? A house cleaner, a maid, all the
All
things,
the
right?
things.
All the things. Well, Elise, thank you so much for being a part of the channel today. I'm ready just to kind of dive into your story. Tell us a little bit about your family, how many kids you have, how long have you been homeschooling, and let's just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my husband and I have been together for over 20 years, and we have two kiddos. They are young. We had to God taught us some things about patience.
Mm.
So we had to wait for them, but my daughter is just finishing up her kindergarten year, and my son is being quote unquote would have been in 3K this year. And I am saying that this is our second year homeschooling. Last year was kind of a hybrid for me. I was transitioning from my public school job to leaving
Okay.
and getting ready to homeschool. So a couple of days a week, I was home homeschooling the kids, and then a couple of days a week, they were either with my parents or in a Montessori or daycare program.
Okay. Did you think that you were going to homeschool from the very beginning?
No. If someone would have asked me, I was doing the math on it as I was thinking about it. It's only been 3 years since the idea even popped into my head, which I truly
Mm.
feel like God was trying to put something on my heart. And now when I see what has become of it, I worked in the public schools. I went to the public schools. I had never really heard of, I mean, I knew that homeschooling existed, but I remember it was a really, really hard day. I actually had a speech and language classroom, which is kind of an interesting thing. And I was talking to my assistant and I was like, what if I homeschool? And in my head, it was, I get zingers. Sometimes I feel like God just kind of like talks to us, right? And he's just like, this is an idea. And I expected her to be like, what are you talking about? She was like, no, I love that idea. Talk to somebody else. That's a really great idea. I homeschooled my kids for, whatever long period of time. And these were
Wow.
all people who worked in the public schools who were like, yeah, this is a great idea, at least. And so,
Wow.
because of who I am, I just dove in. I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. And I remember telling my husband, and he was like, what? Yeah. And like the first thing for him is he's like, how are we going to afford that? That is not what is in the budget right now for us. We are a dual income family that needs the dual
Hmm.
income, right? So that was kind of how things started. And I recognized right away that if I wanted to at all pursue this, first of all, I needed more information. But second of all, I had to have a plan in place to have
Hmm.
some level of income once we started to do this. So that first year, I just kind of milled it around in my mind more than anything. Started a website, did start my LLC, and was kind of thinking about, okay, what am I going to do here? I think I'm going to try to see some speech therapy clients. And I got cold feet. It was
Mm.
a different school year. I had another wonderful assistant, and it was a much better year. And I'm like, why would I give this up? This is a nice gig that I've got. I love what I'm doing. That week, I got the letter that my classroom was closing. God was like, nope, you are on the right track. Do not divert from this. And so that then I knew that I was on the right path, and that just kind of helped propel me forward. And that later that week, I got my first organic call from somebody who was interested in getting some services. They had just found me randomly on Google, and that kind of helped propel things
Wow.
in the next 2 years. I'll be coming up on 2 years of my private practice in May. So it's been a very short period of time, but I've gone all in.
Wow. So were you doing your private practice and in the public school system at the same time?
Yeah, and that's like one of the things that like they recommend, right? If you're looking into
Hmm.
doing private practice, because it's very easy to just have a couple, you have some things in place legally, and you can just have some clients on the side. So I was
Right.
kind of seeing if I could build that. I at that same time, my son was having some pretty major things happening, and I ended up diving into the world of airway health and myofunctional therapy as it fits into speech therapy. And so that I
Mm.
think is a God thing that I now specialize in that. And because of my experience with him, I'm really able to help a lot of families in that, especially. And it's been really cool.
Wow. Okay. So you leave the public school system, you have your private practice, which was pretty smart looking back because you already had some clientele, and then you start homeschooling. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about you juggling homeschooling this last year and still doing your practice. How did you find time for both?
I think I had a good, luckily for me, my transition year was really helpful because I was working. We were starting to do some of the homeschooling. I mean, I did what everyone does. I bought like 5 curriculums and then realized that was dumb. you know, I don't need to do that. Like, and especially for me, because a lot of the things that we're teaching come very organically for me with what I do for a living
Hmm.
and, learning language and all this stuff and learning just built in through play. But I
Yeah.
definitely did that. I panicked, and then you go, no, I need to slow down a little bit. So
Hmm.
last year was very helpful in me kind of seeing what do I want to do? I explored
Mm.
all sorts of podcasts and Charlotte Mason and unschooling and just all of the different types of homeschooling that are out there to kind of get a feel for that.
Yeah.
And then in the summer, when I finally left, I decided I was like, we're going to start. Whatever we're doing, we're going to start. So I only had, it was very minimal last summer, 2 days a week. I saw clients in office, but it was only a couple of hours a week. So we kind of were able to like gradually get into the waters of doing both. And I think one of the things that I realized right away is that as soon as my husband and I decided, like, okay, this is what we're doing, there was a mindset shift. And you
Mm.
just realize that everything is learning.
You're
He
right.
is so much more, not that he wasn't before, but when one of my kids asks a question, he's like, let's explain it. Let's figure out the definition. Let's go get,
Yeah.
some of these things out. And you just recognize how much learning is happening in some of those, or how many learning opportunities there are, I guess, in
Yes.
so many of these everyday things.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was really helpful. I will say though, and like we had kind of talked before we started recording,
Hmm.
leaving my full tenured school position to do a private practice just 2 days a week with not a full caseload was a huge risk and a
Mm.
huge financial challenge for us this year that we have overcome. And
Mm.
not in the overcome like I'm making $1 million, but we have overcome in that we have been able to make the bills. And there was a couple months where we
Hmm.
weren't sure. And I think that that's something that people who are considering homeschooling or are considering, especially like in my position where you're going to be leaving some
Hmm.
income behind to try to figure something out, like there is going to be very lean times. And there's probably going to be
Yeah.
some things that we have to let go of and say goodbye to in order to do
Yes.
it. However, God has continued to just show up in our lives and provide
Hmm.
for us. And I am continuing to grow my business and in my homeschooling because of it, but definitely not without, like, I don't want anyone to think like, oh, it was just sunshine and rainbows and it
Right.
was fine. Anyone who's started a
Yeah.
business knows like there's investment, like it takes time. You're doing
Yes.
so much more,
Hmm.
hours are getting put in that you didn't think were
Right.
going to. So it's
Right.
been a lot, but I do not regret it at all.
Yeah, I think obedience is key. When the Lord calls you to do something, He's going to make a way. I was like we were saying right before we press record that it's hard, but it's doable. And I kind of liken it into I had 4 kids in 4 years. And so I would go to the grocery store with all 4 of them. And people would say, "Oh my gosh, how did you do that? I couldn't even go to the grocery store with one. I can't even go to the grocery store with 2 kids. Like, how did you do that?" And I would say, "It's hard, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we got through it." You look back and go, "Okay, well, we got through it." And I think it's the same thing when you are homeschooling and starting a business or trying to keep your business afloat, that it's hard and there's going to be some hard seasons and some challenges, but it's also doable, especially when the Lord has called you to
Yes.
that. And I feel like too that it's easier to do something in business that you already either know or have a passion about. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't go try. I'm not ragging on Mary Kay. This is the first thing that came to my mind. Don't go try to sell Mary Kay if you don't wear makeup.
Yes.
Like, don't go try to be a speech pathologist or whatever if that's not your gift. Don't go try to bake. That's mine. I'm a baker. Don't go try to bake if you don't like to be in the kitchen. So when you do something that you're passionate about, it's so much. That's what causes it to be easier and a little bit more smooth sailing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things that I talk about on the podcast is your mission. Do you
Hmm.
have a written mission statement in your business and in your motherhood? And if you don't,
Oh, yeah.
you should. And
Yes.
why? Because you, first of all, and as a mom, you can say yes or no to things if you know that this fits into my mission. My mission is, and actually, it was funny. I was just telling someone, like, this is my mission. I'm like, I got to rewrite it because it's a little hard for me to say it right now, but is to create healthy foundations for family. Like, and my business mission is to create healthy foundations for moms, for Christian moms, by building their faith, helping them to be able to advocate for their kids, and understanding ways that they can naturally support their bodies
Mhm.
and their kiddos' bodies. And that translates the same at home for me, right? I want to be able to build up my family by building on their faith, advocating for them, and really truly having whole, natural, holistic health in my life. And once you start asking those questions and you go,
Yeah.
yeah, this is my mission.
Yeah.
So, what are the things that you're passionate about within that mission? If you don't already know,
Right.
that you
Yep.
can build on, because those are the
Yep.
skills God has given you, some of those spiritual gifts to use. Like you said, rather than trying to find something that works for somebody else, find out what your spiritual gifts are, what lights you up. It's the same thing with our kids, right? If we want them to learn what lights them up, that's what we should be focusing on,
Yeah.
having a unit study on, or those types of things. And once you have a
Hmm.
mission, though, it just makes everything else so much easier.
It does. I actually agree with that. Whenever I first started homeschooling many, many moons ago, we actually had a mission statement, and mine was to create well-rounded kids who love the Lord and who had solid character and morality. Had nothing really to do with academics. It was
Yep.
all about character. And so I look back going, wow, like we really have fulfilled that. Going back to your mission for your business, you were saying that. Um, Actually, it's like right here. I serve Christian homeschool mothers of children with additional needs to find ways to grow their faith, advocate for their children, and create healthy foundations in their lives. How do you service homeschool Christian moms with what you're doing?
So that really fits into probably more of my podcast, but I will say, once you like are once you're outed as a homeschooler, a lot of the clients that I serve within the clinic are homeschooling families. And so that works really well. And I think I just take all of the things that, and I will say, I don't, obviously, I cannot preach during my client sessions and that kind of thing, but I
Hmm.
encourage my clients, if they would like to listen to my podcast, which are obviously going to bring in some more
Hmm.
biblical principles. But really, I am very, very upfront and in a loving and supportive way of talking about, like, have you looked at all of the areas that could be causing your child this difficulty? Have you looked at the root cause? Do you need help with finding natural ways to support your child? Do you need help with ways in advocating for your child? Those are definitely my strengths because I've had those
Wow.
difficulties with my own kiddos. And so I'm able to, right now, I have a pretty broad, um, my business is growing and I have kind of like almost branches of it. And so I'm able
Hmm.
to kind of focus in on, depending on the branch, I'm getting all of the areas of my mission in, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. That's so great. So, how do you find time to record your podcast? Do you do your own editing as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do you find time to do your own podcast, to edit, to upload, to work in your clinic and homeschool?
Well, I'm going to be honest in that I have two really long days. So I'm in my office today. Sometimes they are 10-hour days. We are so blessed that we
Mhm.
have grandparents that are with my kiddos. And I know that that's not something that everybody can have, right? So that is where I have all of my in-person. If I'm doing virtual or in-person sessions, like that's when those things happen. And I do build in time to do more of like administrative work. But really, the majority of the things that are not one-on-one in person are happening at home, and I use block scheduling. I really, really rely on AI, and Claude and I have become best buds and have created this beautiful block schedule for myself. And I have it very clearly set
Mhm.
as to what area I'm working on at these specific times. And I block out my homeschool days and I turn on
Yeah.
my email notification that I'm out of the office. That's been the biggest thing for me is when my kids, especially at the beginning of the year when I was trying to manage all of this for the first time, Mom, you're on your phone. Mom, you're on your computer.
Mm,
Okay, I have to do something to really create a boundary. I have an employee who works for me, a virtual assistant, and I told her, I'm like, I am putting my out of office on Thursdays. Like if it's an emergency, I'm available, but this is my homeschool day.
mm-hmm.
Fridays, I have more
Yeah.
flexibility so that I have that very specific
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
built in. And I will say we homeschool every day. There's never a day that we're not getting some sort of lessons in because
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the days, I mean, I have one chunk of a really long, like totally present and focused. The rest of the days tend to be more like our couple of hour long chunks that we're working on things or
Yeah.
where I'm focused or that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
using the block scheduling is what I need in my own ADHD brain to be
Mm-hmm.
able to be like, nope, okay, I'm moving on to this now. And that
Yes.
helps with the tasks too,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise, especially if their businesses are content related, that can feel so overwhelming. So
Oh,
if you
yeah.
can break things down, that can really help with like, what am I supposed to do? Because I'm sure you've been there where you're like, oh, I have an hour. What do I do?
Exactly.
I don't
It's
know
like
what
a
to
kid in
do.
a candy store. It's like you don't know where to go first because let's be honest, our lists are so long. Our to-do lists are so long. And so I get like that too, where I'm like, oh, I have an hour. What should I do? What should I do? What's helped me is having the block scheduling, but also I have a notebook that I write down my to-do list. Like before I jumped on to start recording today, I was in the middle of something and I had to stop what I was doing to transition to actually sit down and actually record these podcasts today. And I wrote down so I would not forget because I am so bad. If I don't write it down, I'm gonna forget. Okay. Like that is my encouragement to you guys. If
Same.
you're gonna forget, write it down. Write it down. But anyways, I literally write down my to-do list in detail of everything I need to do. And that way, whenever I'm done here, I'm gonna go back to that to-do list and, finish up. Um, but I wrote this down that sometimes like our scheduling has to be non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Like when my kids were a little bit younger and we were doing a lot more like one-on-one homeschooling days, I would tell people you cannot call me unless it's an emergency, but you can't call me before like 1 o'clock or noon or whatever. Like the morning is for my children. It's for, me sitting down with them. It's for our time together. And so people understood that after, having to have that conversation.
I think that when you are homeschooling, it's very easy to be like, oh, I don't really need to do that. Or, okay, it's fine. But if you can set up a little bit more structure, and I don't like schedules, I always talk about
Yeah.
rhythms, but I will say that that is a schedule for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
have to have that in order to be able to like get through the rest of the day. And the kids get it, right? They
Yeah.
thrive on having some semblance of a rhythm and
Oh, yeah.
understanding what's going to happen. So you don't have to feel guilty about that because when
Hmm.
you and your nervous system and your body and your spirit are filled up, you can pour into them and you can better pour into your business.
Oh, 100%. Yes. I think that's another thing that should be non-negotiable is your time with Jesus. I mean, um, I like to say that my soul and my body need to be strengthened in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give other homeschool moms who are kind of wanting to like start a business or start something? What advice would you give them?
I mean, I don't know that I would do it all at once like I did. Like, I don't know that I would start homeschooling and start a business at the same time.
Hmm.
I had mine, situated. So if you are already homeschooling, I would say you probably want to make sure that you have some good rhythms in place, right? Like you feel like you're not totally overwhelmed in what you're doing at homeschool, right? If you are going to
Hmm.
try to add something to something that you are already overwhelmed to, the chances of you being able to be successful are not going to be high,
Hmm.
right? So figuring out what rhythms you need to put in place and then planning for what that's going to look like. How do you think it's going to change if your kids are old enough, talking to them about it? Okay, if
Hmm.
mom's going to do this, why is mom doing this? Maybe actively involving them if depending on their age, if they can be part of the business and understanding
Hmm.
starting the business and paying taxes or some of those things. How can you incorporate what you're doing in the business
Hmm.
into your homeschool, but really having a plan for how that is going to impact, if at all, because some
Yeah.
people, depending on what you're doing, you might be, and depending on how old your kids are, they might have independent time and you can just fit it in during that independent time or after they go to bed. But I think having a plan ahead of time and also having very reasonable expectations. It is very unlikely
Hmm.
that you are going to start whatever business you are doing and going to be a millionaire, right? Like have reasonable expectations, maybe
Yeah.
even working with I use Score, which is a free small business mentoring program that's like nationwide. If you look at that, it's just SCORE, and you can find a business mentor that can kind of help work you through that. That's totally free. I have utilized that. I've utilized paid business coaches as well. But thinking ahead and having a plan and not just like throwing the dart at the wall and thinking, oh, maybe like you said, maybe I'll try this. Picking something and being very thoughtful about it and understanding that at the end of the day, I'm sure that that income is important, but like we don't
Hmm.
want to get lost in that, and we want to still be able to
Yeah,
be present and truly there for our
right.
kiddos.
Because at the end of the day, the dollar signs don't matter if your kids, I mean, they come first. Your
Mm-hmm.
family comes first, your marriage, your time with your husband, your time with your children, all that should be more of a priority than the dollar signs. This channel is just to help people to be able to navigate that, just to have that extra income. But it's not, like I always say, it's helping homeschool moms create an income from home without sacrificing their family time. Because at the end of the day, would it be wonderful to be a millionaire? Of course. Would it be wonderful to be like financially stable or bringing in that extra big dollar amount? But if your kid is being neglected, if you're not spending that quality time, then it's for nothing.
Yeah, and I think if you can find something to that again that goes to your passions, but there are lots of things that are available that are a little bit more like evergreen and don't require as much like direct. So just
Mm.
looking at all of your options, I think that we can kind of be overwhelmed by that too, but
Oh, yeah.
finding out like what am I passionate about, what am I interested in.
Hmm.
Honestly, one of the easiest things that just came to mind is like my now she has another title because she does so much more than just virtual assisting, but she's my practice administrator, and she is a mom who is home with kiddos, and she
Mm.
works 2-ish hours 4 days a week for me. And it is
Wow.
life changing for me as a business owner. And it has been life changing for her as
Wow.
a mama. She works
Yeah.
during the kids' naps. And so even just like looking at things like that, where it may
Mhm.
not be necessarily a business to start with,
Right.
you might be working for somebody just to kind of get yourself going to see, yes, I can do this. Yes, I have the time without taking all of the like mental and financial time that goes into like truly starting a business. That might be a good option. And I mean,
Yeah.
moms are the best. She is super organized because she's
Hmm.
managing all of this stuff. So you have all of these skills. Other businesses will
Yeah.
be interested in, utilizing the skills that you have in that way as well.
Right. Yes. Yes. Moms, they always underestimate themselves. But if you think
Mm-hmm.
about it, we really do have skill. We keep things afloat. Maybe not all the time great, but we're doing it.
Yes. Yes,
I
absolutely.
love it. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for just being on here. This is a lot of really great advice. Do you have any last like piece of advice or encouragement that you would want to share?
I just feel like if God places it on your heart, you can do it.
Hmm.
I think that, it's not always, I always use the analogy of like, you just need to get in the boat. I was standing on the shore of the
Mm.
river. I wasn't going upstream. I wasn't going downstream. And when I finally got in the boat, there just has been so many doors that are open. Now I have a
Yeah.
very big life jacket on, and there have been rapids, and I might have thought I was going to drown a couple times, but God had me. And
Hmm.
sometimes He doesn't want you to see that there's a waterfall coming down, downstream. But if you
Yeah.
can just trust Him that He's
Yeah.
placing this in your heart for a reason, and
Yeah.
pray on it and just like listen to the way that he's guiding you. And I one of the
Yeah.
things that I've been saying recently too is like if there is some level of resistance, like know that that might be from him, and just take a step back and say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to wait, or I'm going to think on this, whatever it is, well, already in business or thinking about starting business,
Yeah.
and just know that he's got a plan and he's working on it. We might not,
Hmm.
be able to see that end, but he's got us. And if he places it in your heart, mama, you can just get in the boat. You got this.
Yeah, he is. He's so faithful and he's so kind and he's not going to leave us. He's not going to forsake us. And he wants us to be mature and, to grow and to learn new things. And so, well, I so appreciate we're almost out of time. I have one last question for you. Actually, I have two. Okay, first one is how can, if anybody was interested in your practice or just kind of knowing what you're doing, how can they find you or your podcast?
Sure. So my podcast is Speaking Life into Motherhood, and we talk all things child development, crunchy mom, biblical stuff, all that there. And then my website is speakinglife.co, and that's where you're going to be able to find everything. I have a homeschooling expo in Wisconsin that I am chairing. I do some homeschool coaching. I do some special needs coaching. All of those things can be found there. And I'm just like an open book. If you are someone who wants to start a business or needs some encouragement, I'd be happy to help if you reach out.
I love that. Well, Elise, thank you so much. Last question. What are y'all having for dinner tonight?
Oh, you know what? It's whatever my parents are making because they're making it for my kids. So when I get there, spoiled, I'm very spoiled. So whatever grandma and grandpa are making, I get to show up and dinner's made today. So I'm very lucky.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I'm going to be a little jealous tonight as I prep my dinner for everybody. I love it.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. Well, guys, remember to let your light shine before all men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Until next time.